Welcome back to Streets and Eats. This is episode 120. Woohoo! And we're talking about something that is near and dear to our heart. We just came back from there really a couple of weeks ago, a Dolomites road trip. And if you know us, you know we love mountains. And I got to say, as far as mountains are concerned, Dolomites hits
Stunning.
all the right feels.
And we love road trips. So any chance to do a road trip, and we are there.
That's true.
I've got the trivia question this week. And you don't have to go far to find really amazing facts when you're talking about the Dolomites in northern Italy. And one of the most amazing things is Ötzi, the Iceman. This mummified remains found in an alpine pass by hikers not that long ago. They brought him in, and the police were investigating because it's so well preserved that it could have been someone who was murdered or died in the past, like in the last 50 or 60 years. So that's where they're going. Well, it turns out, no, it was thousands of years ago. And
he was trapped in the ice.
Yeah. And there's just so much interesting things about him. But one of the most interesting things that I have found about him is the idea that maybe he has living relatives today. So that's where my trivia question's going. Do you think that Ötzi has living relatives today?
Well, yeah, I would think so.
Probably. So how many do you think?
How many?
Got to throw a number in there that there's absolutely no way you can come up with the exact number.
I'm going to say 642,461.
Well, you're wrong, of course.
Like I expected to be right.
But one of the other probably more famous and most famous
Genghis Khan
descendant or ancestor, I should say, of so many people was Genghis Khan, especially in Europe.
When we went to Mongolia, we heard this over and over and over again. It was really kind of funny about how Genghis Khan had, spread his seed
everywhere,
all over the world. But really, he wasn't the only one.
No,
he just
of course
was
not.
Quite good at it.
And he just had lots of sons, and they spread their seed, and they had lots of sons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know the number, but it's huge amount of people related to Genghis Khan.
If you want to read more about it, you can go to our website.
Yeah,
Reflections and Row. We have a nice article about what we did in Mongolia.
But Ötzi was not that widespread, if you will.
I didn't think so. And plus, he died at a rather young age.
Yes.
So, he didn't have time to spread his seed that much.
But DNA sampling pretty extensively throughout Italy and Austria have revealed 19 living relatives of Ötzi.
19? Okay,
19.
Well, I was way off, wasn't I? I just figured that they must have kept propagating, but it is a harsh climate, so I can see why that might not.
And it's not like he was a world traveler or in an army invading other countries. He was basically just going from.
He was a hunter-gatherer.
One village to another, when he got murdered.
When he met his demise.
Yeah.
When we did our top museums webcast, you probably remember that this was one of the ones. Was it our number one?
I think it was.
It may have been our number one because the thing is, the museum is amazing and it's run like a police, your
a forensics investigation,
murder investigation.
Yeah.
It's really,
like
really,
a CSI
really
lab.
flipping cool and memorable. Like we tell everybody about it. It's that great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
that's in Bolzano, which is part of the Dolomites.
And okay, so I'll set the stage a little bit. We lived in Germany for a long time over the years, different times throughout the years. And we would drive through the Alps and through Austria and into Italy to do Italy trips. A lot of different times, road trips into Italy. And each time as we're driving through the Brenner Pass, we get through the pass and we see these stunning mountain vistas and just incredibly.
But we're always going somewhere.
Incredibly beautiful stone castles and forts perched on the cliffs. And we always think, okay, we got to get off this highway one of these days and do a Dolomites road trip. I don't know how many times we've said that over the years, but we finally did it. And it was just everything we could have imagined and then some. Don't you think? It was incredible.
It was incredible. I'm not arguing with you.
But it's just funny because it is, and there's a couple places like that around the world where you drive through going somewhere else and think,
oh, I should
maybe
stop there.
this should be my trip sometime. And it took us so long to actually make that our trip. But in a way, it's good because
We appreciate it.
we appreciated it more, and we had more of an idea of what we wanted to do in the area. And there's just so much to do. You can't do it all. So that's why you do it.
One of the things was because it did take us so long really to do it. We've been in and out of the Dolomites many times, but to really spend time sort of concentrating on it, this was really the first time. And I was surprised at how many, especially American tourists that we ran into. There were tourists from all over the world.
There were.
And local tourists and German tourists and, other European tourists, as well as, we met people literally from all over the world. And I was just kind of surprised at that. I don't know why it surprised me.
It surprised me as well.
Because it's not Rome or Paris or London,
Right.
And or Cinque Terre or Venice or, parts of Italy. Italy is so well touristed that I think that it gets pushed down further at the bottom of the list. And let me tell you, it should be number 1 on the list as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Dolomites.
It is that amazing.
Or Italy.
The Dolomites.
The Dolomites specifically. Yeah, I agree.
In Italy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's just so many top sites in Italy that it's surprising to find people there.
I found it surprising. I don't know why.
Well, we went in kind of a shoulder season. And I was just surprised at how many people were there in the shoulder season. There was, we had some difficulty. We
went just a few weeks ago at the last week of September, going into the first week of October, and a little bit of the second week of October. So for about 10 days, 12 days. And then we ended up actually in Annecy, France. So we went across the top of Italy, but that part we're not really talking about today.
Yeah.
We're just sort of concentrating on, which was the main portion of our trip,
right?
The Dolomites themselves.
And that was really the reason we were heading that way. And that it's a shoulder season. There was a lot of hotels closed and some restaurants closed, but there was enough opened where it wasn't really problematic.
Impact you negatively.
But there was so many people there. And I understand why, having done it now. It's probably the best time of year to go as far as the weather goes. The scenery, you've got all the color in the mountains from the trees changing.
And considering how many people were there, I can't imagine the crowds of the summer.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot imagine it.
So we'll talk more about good times to go, but it worked out really good for us. And on top of that, it was the transhumana time. So the cows coming out of the alpine meadows and down into the villages to spend the winter in the farms, which is an incredible thing to do.
Well, we did a whole podcast on it, the Alps trip.
That's right.
And we do talk about the one we did a couple in northern Italy in the Dolomites, and they were amazing.
You kind of said this already. We did the Dolomites road trip and then drove on to Annecy and then back up into Germany. And I guess what I'm getting at is it would be difficult to do the Dolomites, to really get out and see a lot of the mountains and the museums on top of the mountains and watch the Alps trip and do some hiking and all this other stuff without a car.
Oh no, you definitely need a car.
It almost this is almost a region where you have to do a road trip.
In saying that, when you stay there, and we'll talk about some of the accommodations that are available to you in the area, you often have to pay a tourist tax of,
right.
€1 to €2 a day. And with that tourist tax, you're given a card for that area. And that usually, if not always, but at least usually, gets you free transportation on the public buses.
In the region, yeah.
And some of the trains as well. But definitely on public buses. So you can get around. And everywhere we were in the Dolomites, people were waiting for buses. So they were using that transportation mode pretty extensively. For us, it's hard to do that because we are so, well, first of all, we pack a lot into a trip. You know, we're going there, we're spending the money. We don't want to, we're not of the mindset even after 40 years of traveling together, we still don't really go and say, oh, today is Wednesday. well, after our leisurely breakfast, maybe we'll catch the bus to X, and then we'll do this and that and have lunch, and then, and then ride the bus back and have to. That is not us.
Okay.
No,
You're putting me to sleep just thinking about it.
But that's just not us. We get
wanna
up,
go.
we get going, we have a breakfast, and we head to the first place. Now, I don't think that
We
we
don't pack in.
overschedule. We're not those people. We may have different times in our lives, but
Yeah,
I don't think
true.
we overschedule. But we definitely have a rhythm, and the rhythm is not that relaxed where we want to wait for buses.
Right. Well,
Ever.
and you could go to the Dolomites and you could just use public transportation, but you'll have a difficult time going from this place to that place to that place to that place, and just progressing on a road like you would on a road trip. There was a great public system where you could get from Bolzano to pretty much any destination in the Dolomites. But then you'd have to go back to Bolzano to go to the next place and back and forth. And the timing would kill you. I mean, it would kill your whole trip. You'd spend more time on a bus than doing anything else. So while you could go to these places, you couldn't really do like all the Dolomites in a week.
So if I were making a suggestion, I would say fly into Bolzano or fly somewhere close to there. Maybe, what is the Austrian town?
Innsbruck, yeah.
Because that's right over the Brenner Pass. And then rent a car from there. And then you can start doing things. I do think that renting a car is pretty key to this trip.
Yeah, it is.
Because for one thing, what are you there for? You're there for the spectacular scenery. And by the way, the spectacular scenery isn't at the bus stop.
No.
I mean, there might be some there, but it's not going to be the best. And that means it's going to be hard to get to those spots via bus. In fact, we'll talk about Tre Cime, but that was one of the places that you would want to go in a car for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you're renting a car or you're driving your own car. Like I said, probably if you're in your own car or you rented a car somewhere in Germany, it's part of a longer road trip. But you definitely want to get to the Dolomites and spend at least a week there. But you're going to find very narrow roads, steep, winding, inclines through mountain passes.
When he says narrow roads, I don't know that everybody has
maybe not
in their brain how narrow these roads are. There were times white knuckles on the window pane, holding on dearly to the, what do you call those handles? Crash handles, whatever they're called. It is frightening. You're on the side of a mountain and it's not wider than a car sidewalk.
The car fits. That's about
one
it.
One car fits, and then everybody either needs to back up or pull over, and then you
find a pull out
by, and they're very good at it. They're very used to it. But I'm going to tell you that can be,
and you're going to be on these roads, and you're going to want to be on these roads because that's where the scenery is, and that's where you're going to access the best hiking. So you have to be ready for that, I think.
You do.
Depending on the time of year, you could be encountering snow, especially the higher in elevation you go.
Well, we encountered snow. Quite a bit of snow on our trip, actually.
We did. But it never really impacted our driving. The roads were always clear.
Yeah, it was close. They canceled events because of the snow.
Yes. And the other thing to keep in mind is there are certain passes and roads that you have to have chains in your car. Now, whether you'll actually need to use them on your trip or not, that depends on the weather, but the requirement is that you have them. So if you're getting a rental car, that's something you need to talk to the rental company about and say, I'm going to be driving this area. Can I get some chains? And they should provide them. They should provide them. We went out and bought some chains for our car because we were planning on going over this one pass. As it turned out, the weather did get too bad. We couldn't go over that pass, but we have the chains for the next time, so we're ready for it. And they were not expensive. I think it was only like 60 euros for a set of chains. So that was worth it. But
that was for our own car, so we didn't mind spending it either.
I really didn't mind spending it. Yeah. Where to stay on a road trip? You have really a lot of options. Of course, there's like VRBOs, Airbnbs, there's pensions, there's family-run hotels, There are resorts.
It runs the gamut.
It really does run the gamut. We like those family-run, smaller places, either a hotel or a pension.
And we kind of like to be a little out of the town, but if possible too, we'd like to be able to walk or without driving to our dinner so that we can have a glass of wine or whatever. And so what was nice about this area was the pensions almost always had at least a half board or a restaurant as part of the hotel. So you could eat there if you wanted to. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going half board. If you're trying to save money, it's a good way to save money.
Yeah.
And it's a good way not to worry about what you eat. So if you're not a foodie or you want to save some money, it's a good option. For us, we did that only one time to kind of check it out, and it was
okay.
It was okay. It was nutritional. There were enough choices. Did it blow our minds? No way. Would we choose to do that as a general rule? No, because we want to experience the local food. And what happens at those pensions when they do that is they have a very generic, of course, they're going to use Tyrolean food or Italian food, but it's going to be more generic. It's going to be something that's more appealing to pretty much everybody. Like you're going to see a schnitzel.
Smaller menu, maybe 2 or 3 different items to choose from at the most.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was good.
And those are really made for like the idea that you're going to go to a pension or this hotel or a Garni
for a week.
Stay there for a week. And like you said, there may not be much around it other than the restaurant in your hotel that you can get to easily. So you want to have that availability. But if you're on a road trip and you're only spending a day or two in each place, you got your car, you can go find some amazing restaurants. It just depends on what you're
looking for.
Yeah.
But they were pretty cool. We found some really good ones. What was my favorite one was Casa de France in Vigo de Fassa. That's a mouthful. And I'll tell you why it was my favorite. First of all, it was in this beautiful pass that we'll talk about as one of the places you should go. But then we get there and we're met by the proprietor. I don't know if he actually owns it or
I think
maybe
he was France. I think he was France.
I'm not sure if he was. It doesn't really matter. He was very welcoming. He told us stories about the family. He showed us around. They had a beautiful little area where you could make your own tea and coffee
and a couple snacks.
Yeah. They didn't have breakfast. I guess they had a deal with one of the other hotels most parts of the year, not all the year.
But not the shoulder season.
We were there. And we did go out and find our own breakfast and stuff. But it was just so quaint and so beautiful. And it's so personal. That's why we like it, because you get that interaction versus going to a major hotel where, they're polite, don't get me wrong, but you're not necessarily going to get any personal interaction. So anyway, that was my favorite one.
Yeah, I like that one too. You can also stay in the refugios. A lot of people do that for hiking. You're hiking in the Alps and you go from hut to hut and you spend the night in these different huts.
We haven't done that yet. Really it's kind of on our bucket list.
It definitely is. And it's not necessarily a road trip thing, but there are some refugios, like Refugio Arunso up in the Tre Cime area, where you can drive up and you could stay in that refugio, and then you could do a day hike from there and come back to your car the next day after spending the night in a refugio. So that is definitely always an option.
Or, a lot of people do multiple day hikes. So what they do is they have the refugios sort of interspersed on these longer trails. And we actually have interviewed for the podcast really early on Morgan Fielder, who has a whole website, and she's done a lot of stuff on that. And so she and her daughter went out there, and it's a good interview, and she knows all about it, and she's a good resource and everything. So since that interview has been on our bucket list, but unfortunately, we spend a lot of time traveling, and yet we never spend that much time in one area.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're more generalists or something. I don't know.
We like to explore, and we like to see as much as we can on our trips.
Yeah.
It's true. That's kind of why I like the idea of driving up, staying in the refugio, doing a day hike and coming back to the car and moving on to the next place.
Yeah.
As opposed to spending a week hiking through the Alps.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
That's a lot of time to commit to hiking for me. Is. I love hiking. I love walking and I love the Alps, but that's a lot of time to commit when I could be doing something else and trying other foods here and there. But we did stay at some pretty good places.
We did.
And we enjoyed it. So the best time to go, we talked about this for us, late September, early October. Fall foliage is stupendous. Generally speaking, the weather's going to be great. Now, when I say great, I mean, you might have some crisp, cool mornings. You might have a little bit of rain.
Well, you need to layer a little bit.
But you're in the 50s, upper 40s, 50s, lower 60s.
It's good for hiking.
It's great hiking weather.
It's good for getting out and walking on those mountains because you want to get out there and experience it
really
that way. And it's northern Italy, so it's really not like even as cold as Germany was cold at that time of the year. And like he said, the colors were spectacular. And it's a shoulder season, so it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, it definitely was cheaper. There were things closed, so you definitely want to make reservations as early as you can. For hotels especially.
I think no matter what time of year, you need to do that.
These days, you really do, as early as possible.
I think nowadays when you're building an itinerary and you've got your route figured out, go right in and get your hotel reservations from that point. We had some issues trying to find a few places that we wanted to stay. So we end up having to, and we grouped and it worked out just fine. But they weren't our first choices.
Right.
There were other places that we probably would have stayed if we'd had that choice. And we ran into two things. We ran into them being closed for the shoulder season because what they do is it's like a time for them to have a little break between the summer season and the winter season.
Right.
And we also ran into, and even the Refugio up at Tre Cime was closed the day that we went there. It closed the day before.
That's right.
We missed it by one day. So you do really need to sort of look at that and decide what you want to do. But there's still other places.
And that's really true. The further into October you get, the more things are going to be closed.
Yeah. For October.
In October.
It'll be back open for winter, for skiing.
But of course, you may not be doing a road trip in the wintertime, but it's just as stunning in the wintertime. And the skiing is amazing. There looks to be more runs there than I think in concentrated areas than in a lot of places in Germany and Austria. And I mean, the Dolomites are just beautiful. To have those as a backdrop as you're swishing down the slopes,
right?
That would be amazing. Like I said, road tripping in the wintertime, we're not
going to do it.
You would probably be going to one place and staying for a week. And if you had more time, then you might go to two different places and stay like 3 or 4 days at each place. But you're not going to do like our road trip. We drove up into the mountains and through the mountains to this place and then through the mountains to this place. And we did like a circle route from Bolzano all the way and then back to Bolzano into that area. That would be extremely difficult in the wintertime.
It would.
Or early spring even. Summertime, beautiful, great mountain biking, great hiking, lots of crowds, lots more people. Of course, you're in the Alps and you're in the mountains and you're going to be able to get away from people. But you still are going to have to deal with that in the hotels and in the restaurants.
Yeah. People, lots of people.
So fall for us.
So what are the highlights of what to see on the route? We'll put the route in the show notes. Not the show notes that are, we'll put them on our article in Reflections en Route. So you can, if you really are interested, you'll get a lot more information on Reflections en Route. But right now we're just going to hit the highlights because it's our main message is go.
Yeah.
Do your
And
thing.
The reason why it's a great road trip is because there are some amazing scenic drives to do where the drive itself is the reason you're going.
Yeah, that whole thing, which is why are you traveling? Is it for the journey or for the destination? Right. In this case,
it's the journey.
The journey is the destination because, I mean, this is how you ride. Oh, wow.
You turn a corner.
Wow.
There's an incredible mountain view.
There's a car coming at me. Ah! Oh, wow. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah. Stop the car. We got to take a picture. Stop the car. There's cows. Stop the car. It's beautiful. Stop the car. There's another car coming. Yikes.
And I have to say the actual sites that we went to, we did museums and we did a couple castles and we did going up to the gondolas and we did just the scenic drives. And just everything we did was just, I mean, I loved literally everything that we did. Yeah. It was wonderful.
There was 2 drives that really stick out in my mind. And one of them, we were going up to Tires to find to see the cows coming down the road.
And we discovered we'd already been there once before.
Yeah. But where the cows were coming down from the mountains, you come up the road. First of all, we stopped in Tiras, where we thought, okay, this is where the cows are. And we saw this beautiful Thanksgiving celebration at the church, people dressed up in ethnic outfits and bands playing. And it was just an incredible place. But we quickly realized that was not the Tiras where the cows were coming. So we had to go further up the road. And you climbing up this road up into the mountains, and you come around this one corner, and you're at kind of a high point and looking down into this Alpine Valley, or Dolomite Valley, I guess.
It's the Alps.
And it's just stunning. And there's this little chapel on the side of the road with a tall bell tower. And behind it is just this array of jagged peaks. And it's just incredibly beautiful. And that whole drive going up and around those peaks, it is, like you said, that is the destination, that journey. Beautiful. The other really beautiful scenic drive that we did, we ended up doing twice, because the first time we got a late start, and that is to Tre Cime, and a beautiful area for hiking, stunning views again. And the drive itself is just incredible. But
and that is definitely part of it.
yeah,
You have to pay €30 to do it, though.
it is an expensive drive. We've paid for a couple of drives in the past, and they've all turned out to be actually well worth it.
Yeah.
And this one as well. You can take a bus if you just want to take the bus up and go to the parking area at the top and hike for the day and then take the bus down. You can do that.
But when we got up there around 10 o'clock, and you would think 10 o'clock would be early enough. Oh, no.
Especially in October, right?
Yeah, especially in October. It was not early enough. We ended up turning around and going much later in the day. But there was a bus there. And the bus driver was like, oh, we're sitting here for a couple of hours.
They couldn't go around the traffic. So regardless.
A public bus, not a tour bus, a public bus.
Regardless of how you're doing it, what we learned was go very early in the morning.
Like so early that it's dark still.
Okay, so I guess the issue is we should explain this. This is a beautiful drive, but you're basically driving up to a parking lot where then you're going to go hiking. The Refugio is there, so you could have lunch when it's open, or a glass of wine or whatever, and just marvel at the beautiful views. It's like you're at the top of the world in this parking lot. But once that parking lot is full, they no longer let cars take that. What is it, like 10 kilometers?
I don't know how long it is.
They no longer let the cars take the drive up the mountain until someone else comes out. So that could happen at 8 o'clock in the morning. It could happen at 10 o'clock in the morning. At some point in time, that gate closes and all the traffic just backs up. And yeah, it includes the buses. So I would have thought the bus was the way to go, because it can go around the traffic regardless of the time of day, and it can still get you there. But no, it can't.
Nope.
So we turned around. We went and did
Lago di Braies.
Lago di Braies, and we did the rowboats on the lake. Stunning. Definitely something everybody should do. And when we got done with that, we thought, well, okay,
we've got time. Let's go try it.
Let's see what it's like in the afternoon.
We didn't really have time to do everything we wanted. What we originally planned to do was drive up in the morning, do the 10-kilometer around the side of the hike, around the mountain hike, where you see the three chimneys, which is what it's named after, and then get back in the car and drive down. That was our original thing.
Right.
And I really wanted to do it. It was on my list. I was like, I need to do this. I really want to do it. And we were just way late. This is one of those times when
we
you're
got shut down by the traffic.
You got a bald snark. So we end up going and doing something else that was on the list. And then Jim had the brilliant idea, and it was really a smart idea of saying, well, let's try it again. I mean, if we turn around, we turn around. Who cares? It was a beautiful ride, even up to the point where we turned around.
It was a gorgeous day. The weather was stunning, partly cloudy.
And it was supposed to
snow
skies,
the next day. And it was going to get worse and worse and worse as the day progressed, and then snow the next day. So we knew we probably wouldn't be able to do it the next day. And it just made sense. Let's go up there. Not necessarily for sunset, because we didn't want to be driving around these mountain roads.
I would not want to come down those roads after dark. I was scared enough as it was.
So yeah, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Plenty of time to drive up there and walk around. We did not have the time to do the 10K hike, but we were able to get out of the car
and walk around
and do a little bit,
enjoy ourselves up there.
And just
like I said, we couldn't even go to the Refugio for a drink or anything because they had closed the day before. So
for the
I
season.
don't think our timing was that perfect for that particular event. But did we?
But we made
enjoy
it work.
It? Yes, very much so. So I mean, we can't really complain too much.
So I guess that's my tip. If you just want to go up and experience the views and do a short hike, go in the afternoon, a little bit later, 2:00, 3:00. And the parking lot will be not empty. And we still had to drive around to find a parking spot up there. But enough people had spent the day up there and had already left that the road was back open and they were letting people up.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was really good. And going back to Lago di Braies, basically that's a, volcanic lake that's in between these gorgeous mountains. And there's a big parking lot that has like 2 or 3 different parts of it. And you can't even see the lake. Like you have to park.
You have to.
It's one of the very few places anywhere in the world that I've been to that they have it like figured out. Because you are going to pay if you're going to go to Lago di Braies. And it's not cheap to park there, but that's just the way it is. Yep. So you park and then it's a very short walk to the lake and you can walk around the lake on both sides. There's a little chapel. There's some eating places. And of course, the main attraction is you rent a boat. And I believe it was 40 euros.
Yeah, 40 euros.
40 euros included an hour's boat ride, which is plenty when you're
paddling.
A couple of fridge
magnets
and postcards. A couple of postcards. So you got a postcard and a fridge magnet for each person, along with that's included in your 40 euros. And I thought it was well worth it. It was well set out. We got there. We had to wait. I think he said we were going to wait 25 minutes and end up being more like, I would say 15 minutes. It really wasn't that long. Because you get an hour, but if you're not a big rower, there were plenty of the rowing abilities were very widely spread out. And like the one person who went before us, I didn't think they were going to ever leave the dock because they
had trouble.
They were like circling around. It was hilarious. But and the lake itself is kind of small. So an hour is more than enough to pretty much do it.
Get out there.
I don't think if you can try and find a spot that's secluded so that you have a good backdrop. There were lots of people taking Instagram pictures, and we took a few ourselves.
Of course.
But there's enough boats out there that it seems like you're always going to have somebody else in the picture.
It wasn't crowded. But having said that, we did bump into another boat one time. And that's mainly because they weren't watching where they were going. And
of course, Jim is facing me instead of...
And I didn't see them coming.
I'm taking photos and we're like, so boom.
We didn't see them coming.
Yeah.
It was pretty mutual, I think.
But we weren't going fast.
It wasn't because,
going fast anyway.
Yeah, and it wasn't because it was super crowded and you couldn't go anywhere without bumping into boats. No, once you got away from the dock, it was pretty open. So, and it was kind of pretty with all the wooden boats just kind of here and there around the lake. Pretty.
So I think that we spent maybe 2 to 2.5 hours there. And you could probably do it as low as maybe an hour to an hour and a half. But I mean, why? Take your time. But a lot of people, I think, spent the whole day there, and then they did a combination of, hiking all around both sides of the lake, and then they would sit and they would eat a pizza or whatever, or a sandwich or whatever, and then they would leave. And I mean, I think that's a good option too. It's just that at that point we were kind of in the back of our heads thinking, we're going to try and go back up that road because we really wanted to do that. So
exactly, and it was probably the best weather day that we had for both of those things. I mean, you can go to a museum in any kind of weather.
Exactly, which we did. We went in some pretty yucky weather to the museum.
But you don't want to be rowing a boat on a lake in the rain or the wind.
So we did a beautiful hike in Val d'Argina. And this kind of goes along with our Volts marching because that's how we found out about this hike. But, you can go to literally any town in the Dolomites to the tourist information, and they're going to have an entire list with usually brochures and maps and, all kinds of information for you to take hikes. And everywhere you go, there's these directional signs that tell you this route and how far it is. And I mean, the one that we did, we did for about 12 kilometers. It was supposed to be 10, but we got so lost. So you can look at our map. We're
We're
going
going
like
everywhere.
this. But you could do 20, you could do 40, you could do whatever amount that you want. And ours, the one that we did, it walked through town and then it went through this amazing valley with a castle ruin up on the hill, a little chapel, some art statues sort of interspersed throughout the forest, and then back through the town, up above the town, really. And they even had along this path, they had the Stations of the Cross, and then you would come back down into the valley where the
past
town
some
is.
farms with cows and sheep with their bells on, and just having that musical sound echoing around.
Stunning.
It was beautiful.
And we did get snowed on.
Yeah, a little snow that day.
We got a little snow, a little sleet. One of the things that was about not quite halfway, there was this little cafe, the Jauza Cafe. And so they had some foods too, but they mostly had like cakes and coffees and things. And so I think Jim would have gone on hiking, but I'm like, I'm stopping for this. Let's take a break. Not because I was tired. I just really wanted to try the cafe, and it was
pretty good.
I wouldn't say it was like cute and cozy that way because it was sort of outdoors, but it was a nice stop. It was really nice.
Good rest, good break.
Yeah,
for sure.
So we enjoyed that.
We also spent some time in up in the Kronplatz area, up the Seilbahn by Sisu. Beautiful place to hike. Again, it's like a alpine plateau with mountains surrounding it. And
it's like a bowl.
Yeah, like a bowl. And hikes up into the mountains, hikes around the bowl, and cows and horses.
And there they had, because you're not really allowed to drive. So to go up to Kronplatz, you're not allowed to drive between the hours of, I think, 9 and 5 or 9 and 6. So you either have to get up there on the cable car, which is the way we got up there, or you get up there on a bus, or you drive and then you park and then you can't use your car again until, like I said, the end of the day, and then you could drive back down. Or you can stay up there. There was plenty of places to stay up there. But what was kind of cool was you could take the public bus once you got up there. So if you were going by bus, or even if you went up by cable car, like we could have taken the bus out to this other area and hiked around there, or we could have gone over into this area.
Right.
There was no need to, because we weren't spending many days there. We only really did it for the one day. And we did a little bit of hiking, and it was a beautiful, gorgeous day. We got up there early in the morning. The sun had risen, but it was still that kind of peeking over the mountains of thing that gives you that really pretty glow. It was just gorgeous, and there were animals, and we ended up having coffee and Apfelkuchen. Oh no, Apfelstrudel. At one of, all of the little hotels and stuff. Most of them have cafes, and we ended up this really beautiful little one that had homemade apple cake that was delicious. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess what's really cool about it is, as a hiker, I do like to hike, but I'm not that hardcore hiker that just wants to go out in the wilderness and not do anything and not see anybody and just, be me and one with nature kind of thing. I love the whole, let's stop at this cafe and talk to these people. I like running into, we ran into a couple from the States, and we talked to them for a while. And to me, that's part of traveling, and that's part of exploring where we are. So, and we got that in spades while we were there. It was wonderful. We did.
Some other cool things we did, the Mountain Museum and the Lumen Museum at the top of the Kronplatz outside of Valdora.
Which is one of the cable cars really that we incredible. Paid to go up.
You really liked the Lumen Museum, and I really enjoyed it too. I think the Lumen Museum even made one of your top 5 lists.
When we did the museums, top 5 museums, it was on my list. But the Messner museums also, to me, those are just so cool, because this rich guy, has 4 museums that he has put in different parts of the Dolomites, and they're all worth going to, I would imagine, because the one we went to was spectacular.
It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Just a beautiful building itself, the way it's like incorporated into the peak of the mountain. It's an art museum. It's all focused around mountain climbing artwork. That was pretty interesting.
And it had some mountain climbing artifacts as well.
Memorabilia from famous climbers and things like that. So that was pretty cool. of course, Bolzano. You're not going to do a Dolomites trip without going to Bolzano.
I gotta
The
say,
Old Town is beautiful. It's just
as
a
far
great
as
place to walk around and shop.
Yeah, as far as
And
Italian
eat.
cities go, it's smaller, but if people ask me what I love it as a city in Italy, I always mention Bolzano. It's got this charm, this Italian charm, and this Austrian charm, and this mountain charm, kind of like all mixed up together. And
It's like fusion.
it's just such a cool vibe, and it's comfortable, and it's like snuggly. We've always gone when it's chilly. We've gone a few times, and it's always chilly. I don't
It's
think
in the mountains, so you get this
I
fresh
guess.
mountain air all the time,
to
even
me
though
that
you're in the
just makes
city.
a difference. And then we were out that one time, we were out, and they have the gas fireplaces, for while you're eating pizza, and
Yeah.
the square, the sun's going down, and in my mind's eye, it's just one of those beautiful,
French kiss places.
beautiful places.
And of course, it's got the South Tyrol Archaeological Museum where you can see the Iceman.
And you can actually see him. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Oh yeah, you can actually see the mummy.
Yeah.
Well, the
Very
mummified remains. He's not a mummy in the sense that like the Egyptians preserved people as mummies. He was preserved by the ice and with all of his belongings on him.
Yeah.
An incredible story and an incredible museum.
Nice market there. Beautiful little buildings. Just a great vineyards. There is a latteria,
That's
milk
right.
dairy there that we went to. Just really cool stuff. We spent a few days there and just really enjoyed it.
Mhm. Lots of good food. For me, if you're going to spend a long time in the region, I think the food maybe got a little bit repetitive because it's the Tyrolean, some Italian, some fusion like Tyrolean Italian food, a lot of pizzas, a lot of pasta. It was all good. But yeah, it tends to get a little repetitive for me. I like to have a few more choices. But everything was delicious. And having said that, in one of our future podcasts, I think we're going to be talking about our top 5 foods. Spoiler alert, one of my top 5 meals was in this area.
Wow, that is a good spoiler alert. But anyway, I think my favorite thing was just as far as food goes, like no matter where you were, you would go and there was these little cafes and you could just stop and go into a cafe and have a coffee because it's chilly. So you need those coffees. And
the coffee's good.
The pastry is amazing. So
that's right.
Didn't matter what they have. And I wouldn't say that there was a huge in any of them because they're small. They're not going to sell tons and stuff. So they would have not a huge array. It's not like a Parisian cafe where you go in and there's like this counter that goes from one end to the other full of pastries. It was always a small little counter with
a couple choices,
like 10 items
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
And I swear we tried something different everywhere we went, and that was the highlight of our day every day.
It's all good food.
All good all the time.
For sure. Yeah, I think that if you're looking for a really unique road trip with stunning vistas, I mean, the reason you're going on a road trip is usually either to get from one place to another or to see the things in between those places. And this is definitely one of those, seeing the things in between. And just the beautiful scenery, the mountains, the old castles on the hillsides. The Dolomites are incredible.
Stunning. I think stunning is the word that I would most use.
Yeah, it's hard not to repeat and be repetitive in our
expletives.
Expletives. In our praise for these mountains.
Anyway. Ciao
for now. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love, hit the like button, and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.